Thank you. Thank you and welcome everybody. Welcome to our Council Transitional Committee. My name is Zahira Naz and I'll be chairing the meeting today. I would like to start off with the housekeeping. Rachel, please.
Thank you, Chair. Housekeeping. To help keep everyone safe, please maintain social distancing at all times. Please wear a face covering at all times within the venue unless you have an exemption. It can be removed once seated, but you may wish to leave it on. Hand sanitizer will be available for you to use. Please remain seated as much as possible during the meeting and do not congregate around exits and entrances. Follow any signage which is provided, such as one-way systems, to help keep you safe. If you have any concerns or are unsure, please ask a member of staff. In the event of the fire alarm sounding, please take instruction from staff and stewards. The assembly point is at Tudor Square. Please can I request everyone to switch mobile devices to silent mode so as not to disturb the conduct of the meeting. The meeting today will be webcast and the recording will also be available for people to view later through the Council's website. While the meeting is open to the public, photography, video and sound recording of the proceedings is permitted. However, the Chair has discretion to withdraw or suspend this permission, for example, if the recording is disrupting the conduct of the meeting or is being undertaken in a manner which could capture personal information, or in the event that a member of the public participating in a meeting objects to being recorded. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rachel. Apologies of absence to you, Rachel, again.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Brian Lodge and Councillor Calton Rivers. Thank you, Chair.
Exclusion of public and press. I don't think there is. No, there isn't. Alice, there isn't, is there? No. Minutes of previous meetings. Has everybody got a chance to have a look at the minutes from the previous meeting? Can we agree them? Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. I'm not aware of any public questions or petitions. No. So going on to item number 7. So today the committee is being asked to note the report appended to the papers of our Council Transitional Committee Strategic Review Customer Focus, agree the recommendations in section 5 of that report to be fed into the Strategic Review of Customer Experience, and the recommendations from the basis of a handover from the Chair of our Council Transitional Committee to the appropriate committee and committee chair in the new committee system from May 2022. I am going to pass it on to Paul Leisner now to talk through the report. Is that okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In addition to the report that was circulated, we included 2 appendices which I believe you will also have had, which I'll make reference to as we work through the report. Customers are our primary reason why many of us work in public service, and from individual experiences to the experience of groups and communities is what we continually use to challenge us to drive better, ever-improving services for our communities. You've seen some of this over the period of time that you've been working on this topic as a committee, and you've seen performance data and have been using your experience as elected members to gather customer voice. Building on the work of the committee, this report sets out the key work streams of the committee, of the work that go forward, but will also include some recommendations that today I'm asking for you to agree. These recommendations will then also be fed into the internal work stream strategic review for customer experience and will be used as a basis to shape that work over the coming weeks, months and year. Through unprecedented change, financial pressures, we've had some very difficult times, but focus on customers remains paramount. Our customer base is broad and the bullet points there detail how our customers break down across communities, but following the work of the subgroup of this committee, we've also included, really importantly, those that in particular experience barriers in how they access services of the council, whether that be linked to language or disability. It's important that we use the insight of customers wherever it comes to us, so whether that's through data or through the experience of members of the community who contact you. In addition to the public meetings, we've had some workshops that were held on the 3rd, 18th and 25th of February, and this report reflects the collective work over that period of time. Some of the considerations that we need to keep in mind is that although we haven't said that we intend to save a particular amount of money through this review, we know that we waste money through inefficiency and failure demand. Every time a customer has to contact us more than once, that is an inefficient and a transaction that can be better for our customers and more efficient for us. So we will work to ensure that we remove duplication, waste and inefficiency to offer a better service for our customers. One of the methods of doing that is to adopt the Good Service Guide criteria, which has been provided to you today as an appendix. 15 simple points that all services should use to ensure that they design services that are inclusive and focused on delivering excellent services for customers. It was important to you all that we build on experiences of previous work in this area, which some of you had been involved in. And we've carried out evaluation of that work, and the strengths will be fed into the programme design. Large-scale delivery hasn't really been that successful for us, so we're taking a more continuous improvement approach and making sure that we focus in those areas where customers are most dependent on us. The Lga Peer review that's also been provided to you with this report has made it really clear multiple well-intentioned efforts to address the challenges have been undertaken over the years, but have not had the desired outcome. We've got to learn from that and do things differently. What comes next has got to be built on that and build on the insight, but move forward at pace. That's been important. You've made that very clear to us as officers, that pace of improvement for our customers and people in your wards are paramount. The approach that we intend to take will build on the elements that are set out in the Lga Peer review. That's built on best practice, built up over a period of time, working nationally with lots of other local authorities. Clear standards, making sure that we have staff that are trained, supported and recruited so that they have autonomy to make decisions and deliver excellence. Technology and tools, and one of the workshops that you did with us would really kind of helped us focus on some of those opportunities to use technology and simplify our customers' experience of working with us. Using customer insight and designing our systems always with our customers in mind. These elements will hopefully allow us to be focused and deliver targeted improvements for our customers. The 4 aspects of the report of the strategic review will look at communication, how as well as what. We sometimes do things that don't help ourselves, so we need to make sure that we communicate in a planned way that give our customers the choices that they need. How people access our services, how we use digital, self-service, information and advice, so customers don't need to contact us so that they can help themselves, and getting it right first time, which will have an impact on quality and timeliness for our customers. Governance is one of the areas where we've learnt from the previous work that we've done that large-scale complex governance arrangements doesn't help us deliver flight of foot improvements on the ground for our customers. So we're implementing, based in part on the recommendations of the Lga Peer review, but also feedback from you in previous committee meetings, that we will have operational leadership, so we will make sure that leaders are held to account for delivering excellence for their customers, and that we'll have governance in place to oversee that, and that governance will include, following the elections, the appropriate committee when we move to the modern committee system. This governance approach needs to build on continuous improvement so that we're continually looking to make things ever better for our customers. The subgroup of the committee offered important feedback, and the governance has been shaped based on that feedback, and I thank members for that opportunity. We'll also have a customer panel, which will allow customers to give us direct, real impact based on their experiences. And they will be customers who have not necessarily had a positive experience. They will be customers who have been identified through our complaints team to make sure that we are challenging ourselves to listen in the hard places to the customer's experience. There are a number of dependencies that we need to make you aware of that may affect our capacity to deliver a lot of things at once, which is why we're proposing to use a continuous improvement approach and make sure that we focus on where we can have maximum impact. We're moving towards a new web platform and using improved digital forms which are far more accessible for those using adaptive technology, but moving from where we are in terms of our current website, which you have commented and we would agree is not where we want to be in terms of our digital offer, will take some time. So we will need to prioritise our efforts to make sure that we deal with those high volume customer journeys first. Automation is a really exciting opportunity, and one of the recommendations is an opportunity to come and see some of the potential that is available through automation so that we can use our very important human resource to be helping customers in a way that technology and automation can't. And finally, doing this work will require resources that the Council will need to prioritise towards this work, and this is one of a number of priorities, so we'll need to make sure that we prioritise work accordingly. The closing recommendations, as Chair had outlined, will form part of the handover from Chair of our Council Committee through to the appropriate Chair of the Committee in May. One of the very welcomed inputs that you have had as a committee is to help us shape that future ambition through the postcards to the future. And thank you very much for those who have taken the time to fill that in and return them to us. We really do appreciate that. Those postcards from the future, those statements, we'll be using throughout this work, and we'll pass them on to the committee in May to make sure that that work is held close and is used to hold us to account as officers to deliver these improvements. So the Transitional Committee recommends that we identify a way of working across the strategic review that builds on strengths, builds in the Lga Peer review findings, but brings internal stakeholders together. Customers first, every time. Reduce the need to make contact through good service design and delivery using the Good Service Guide, as is in Appendix 3. Make good advice and guidance easily available to people at the point that they need it, so people don't need to contact us, so self-service and self-assessment. Make commitments to customers about what they can expect and when they can expect us to deliver it, so customer charter, strategy and vision. Support customers who prefer one channel over another. We may prefer digital, but our customers may not. Digital first buy alternatives must be available and appropriate. All services must be accessible to everyone, and it's important and very clear from you all that we need to remove barriers and challenge our assumptions. Continue to recognise the contribution of our frontline staff. It was particularly welcoming to me to hear how your experiences of hearing what our frontline staff do in relation to supporting customers was valued, and we very much welcome the opportunity for you to come and have those back to the floor sessions and hear firsthand the issues that they deal with when they're supporting customers. To use performance management and benchmarking to establish what goods look like so that we can adopt a standards framework and constantly challenge ourselves to do ever better. Develop shared ownership and joint work to achieve seamless outcomes for customers. One council. It's very important, and the phrase that I've used before is that nose to tail experience. Our customers don't care how we're structured as an organisation, and we need to make sure that those customer journeys are seamless. And finally, to provide members with a periodic report of issues and feedback from that customer panel so that we can make sure that we keep listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Over to the floor now. Committee members, any questions or comments? Councillor Christine.
Thank you for that. It's just a tiny comment, and I think we commented it on our last meeting. It's just we've got this, let me just go to the top of this page now, the 15 Principles of Good Service. So is that something you're thinking of adopting, or are you going to adapt it? Are you adopting it as it is, or are you going to adapt it? Or?
Thank you. So there are some issues about some of the language in it. So we want to play with it as little as possible because it's simple and we know it works. But we do need to test the language because some of that language isn't... We like to use the words that people use every day and some of the language in there. So we want to adopt the principle of it, but we will tailor the language to make sure it's relevant for us as an organisation.
Okay, that's why I asked the question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Kate MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report and the introduction. My question's about the extent to which this is a whole council approach. You mentioned one council in one little bit in this report, and I think, you know, my view is coming into this was that this is a window on the whole council. So what in this is actually going to ensure that this isn't just about the front end, it's actually about a consistent approach across the council. I wasn't clear about that, and likewise around the governance arrangement, is that going to be something which is across directorate in all parts of the council? And if so, I think that perhaps could be, if that is the case, and I'll give you an opportunity to come back obviously, I think it needs to be strengthened in the report.
Thank you. So the governance of how the review will be taken forward is twofold. One is an improvement board, which are heads of service like Paul, who have got critical accountability to deliver services. So there are big delivery services like housing, repairs and maintenance, revenue and benefits, where we know there's high volume, complex challenges around how we support our customers. The second part of that is to make sure that we get our strategic one council approach correct. That's going to be sponsored by our soon-to-arrive Executive Director for Operational Services in place, Ajman Ali, and there will be, Mark Bennett will be the director lead on that, but we've also got another director, because what we recognise is it's difficult for one director in an organisation to have reach right across, you know, what is a big and complex organisation. So that strategic part of the governance is absolutely one council, one approach, so that we make sure that we develop things that have value right across the organisation. I will amend the report and put in what shows that, because it is an important part of that. And had we not had the peer review and the input from you through the workshops, we wouldn't have necessarily thought to separate out that here and now improvement activity and that strategic, overarching one council approach.
Yeah, thank you for that. Can I just sort of seek further clarification? So you talked about the sort of service level governance, and for me that's about involving and engaging people in it. We use the term governance, it's a bit of jargon, isn't it really? But so I'm still sort of trying to get my head around, is this about the services that most of the people who approach customer services actually are interested in, or is it wider than that, that any service that the public contacts actually will be applying the same behaviours, etc. Because I was thinking about, I don't want to single them out, but I was thinking about a service like planning, for example, that there won't necessarily be top of the list in terms of people ringing the contact centre, but we do get feedback that sometimes some planners aren't as easy to talk to as others, and I don't mean to single them out because they're all lovely, but it was just an example of contact that's really important, but wouldn't necessarily be, you know, high on the list of the people that, well, they're not top 10 in your calls that you get at the contact centre. So it's how how they're going, you know, all sections of the council, and I'll just use poor planners as an example. Thank you.
Yeah, it is important that we go beyond the contact centre with all of this stuff. I mean, the LGA review was actually of customer services, but clearly one of the things that we quite often talk about and that's been discovered really is everybody talks about contact centre performance, but actually when you rank that against performance across all of the council, the contact centre is actually quite near the top. So yeah, it's important we take it beyond the contact centre. And I think to a degree we can use this document, the recommendations of this committee and where those recommendations go to, and the principles as well to actually start moving things forward. As Elise said, the new sort of exec director input I think will be important as well. But you're right, there is a selling job really to make this something that's important to everybody. And I think if we've got council-wide standards and the sort of governance, and you don't use the word enforcement, but the enforcement of it, I think is really important in terms of moving this stuff forward. And we can do that by working more collaboratively with other teams as well. You know, as Elise said, we're all here to do the best we can for citizens, and everybody's on board with that. So it's really making it a collaborative thing rather than a stick to knock people over the head with.
You mentioned planners. I would also mention parents of children with disabilities, carers who need support. Our customer profile is vast and hugely varied, and we need to make sure that especially our medium and our long-term vision is thinking about all of our customers. But we recognise there are some groups of customers that are getting a particularly shoddy deal right now that we need to do something a little bit more pacey around, and that's what the governance approach recognises. But it has to be all of our customers, because there's no point in putting a fire out in one place only to, you know, find something is a challenge elsewhere.
Gillian, do you want to come in now?
Thank you. Yeah, just to sort of give an overview of what we're doing strategically with the work that a lot of you, well, you will all know about, is the transition to the committee system. And as part of that project, that programme of work, we are making sure that engagement with the public and the citizens of Sheffield are at the heart of our decision making and the way that we're going to operate going forward. As part of that, there is a programme of work that looks at how we operate behind the scenes. So this isn't just about the way we deliver decisions within the authority, but also about how we, our staff, respond and behave. And it will take some doing. We've got a lot of work to do on that, but that's our strategic aim, and all of the programmes that we're pulling together in order to achieve that change are focused very much on what we can deliver for our customers, and how we actually work with our customers to make sure that the services we're delivering meet their needs as well. So it is a whole organisational shift that's going to take some time. This is part of that. We need the infrastructure in order to help us do that, as well as the behavioural changes. Thank you.
Councillor Colin Ross.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of comments and a couple of questions. Firstly, I'm glad to hear that it's wider than just the customer contact centre, because, yeah, we all know that there's response, as you rightly pointed out, children's and with SEND is a classic case, and frustrations with the planning department, etc. But you're also right to say that we have got a real bit of a crisis with the contact centre at the moment, so, you know, address there first. Again, what I get was we're going for an evolution, not a revolution, and probably that's wise, because revolutions sometimes end up in more chaos than we have if we go for radical change. But a specific question, and I've got another one coming up. The website, you will say, it said, take some time. Can we be a bit more specific on the take some time on that? And the second one was the visit to the the centre. I would be interested in doing that, but perhaps realistically it will be post-May now when we do that. And finally, a comment which was actually based on my postcard that I sent in, which was frustration when gutters were due to be repaired, nobody turned up, tried to contact, got so frustrated, as we all have the experience, they come to us when they're at the wit's end. I was able to do something, and actually this was post me sending in to Alice my postcards from the future, but had a date when they came, had a phone call this morning from the customer saying thank you very much, they turned up on time, they did the job and went away, and assuming the gutters don't leak when it next rains, they were very happy. And it actually shows if people do what they say and get it right, well, not first time in this case, but if they got it right the first time, we would have happy customers. So there's proof in the pudding there. So there was 2 questions to answer, and that was a comment at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. So, first of all, it's nice to hear that the future doesn't need to be that far away. So when we were talking about that, you know, it is at our fingertips. I think the website is, the project phase is just coming to an end and is due to be available for development in June, July time. Part of the exiting that project environment is to set out what the priority areas for development are. Clearly, governance will be one of those areas to make sure that members of the public can understand the changes that we're moving through. But what we're going to have to do is migrate our content from our existing platform onto a new platform. Assuming that goes seamlessly, then the timescales are actually in our control, which is the really important point. So I can't say the website will be fixed by a particular point in time, but by summer, the tools that we need to use to make improvements will be within our gift to use and prioritise, which for the last 12 months they've not been, because we've been going through that project to re-procure that as a product. But it's really important that those tools will be in our hands and able to prioritise services. So it's not precise when, but it's clear that we need to make sure that we, alongside the work that Paul and others will be doing, is make sure that the website is used to kind of deliver that improvement for those customers who wish to use digital channels. That is. And I've forgotten what the second question was.
While we're revisiting that, it's also important to mention that allied to the website thing, there's a review of all the forms that are used to contact the council as well. And that will kick in from around May time this year. And actually, for the user looking at it, it doesn't look all that different, but in terms of the infrastructure behind it, that makes it much more straightforward for what people are putting on those forms to get to the relevant service area. All of that work is underway now. And in fact, we've been asked today to supply a load of testers so people can test at that. Just a couple of bits while I'm on. I mean, I would say this, wouldn't I? I don't think there's a crisis in the contact centre, but I think there are some elements of the contact centre that have still got some real challenges. Not all the elements by any means, but certainly revenues and benefits, especially to a lesser degree repairs and maintenance. That's going in the right direction. But there is some work needed there, and there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes as well. And you're right to flag the thing around the frustrations around repairs. As we talked about last time, there's a lot of stuff rolling around underneath people contacting the contact centre, and we're still doing loads of work behind the scenes with repairs and maintenance management to address those. And the visits thing, absolutely. As I said last time, the more people we can get visiting, coming, for example, to the contact centre and spending time there, the better. When we get post-May, again, we'll build it into the induction for any new members who come in post-May. But also, because there's been a 2.5 year gap, we were getting quite a few members going through prior to the pandemic, and we need to sort of get back into that. And it's important to the staff as well. It really means a lot to them that members come in and listen and understand what things feel like and where the challenges are and where the pressures are and where the good strokes are as well. You know, the fact that I mentioned before that sometimes a call will start off with somebody grumbling about how long it's taken them to get through, and finish by saying, I'm sorry I went off at you at the start, what you've actually done for me is excellent, it's just what I needed. But it was, what we need to do is change that thing of people having to queue.
Thank you. I perhaps should have sort of had a supplementary bit to my question about website evolution, as it were, is as part of that, will there be the facility to log housing repairs jobs or inquiries to revs and benefits on the website and do things online rather than having to resort to the phone? Is that part of, I'm sure it's part of the plan. I'd be appalled if it wasn't part of the plan, but if so, when?
It is part of the plan. The when's more complicated. I mean, certainly, remember last time we talked about getting a portal, so we could have a portal where people can, hopefully where people can start logging things, but certainly where people can track progress on anything that they've done. So you can track a repair. If you've notified us about a change to something that affects your benefits, anything like that, people will be able to track that. I mentioned last time that there's some LGA grant funding available, which we were pursuing. All things being equal, all the signs are good. The application form should go in tomorrow. So that will provide us with some kickstart funding to actually start developing that portal. Now, as ever, these things are never straightforward because the sort of stuff that goes on in the background is going to need to be upgraded as well. So realistically, we could be looking at certainly towards the end of the year before that's fully up and running. But that will make a substantial difference, and that will, to a large extent, take a lot of the contact that people need to make out of the equation if we can get that up and running and working properly.
So just so I've got it loud and clear, we're talking about the end of this year, calendar year, not municipal year or anything like that. So it's a target for us on whatever committees are on to hold you to.
I have to be careful because I'm taking other people's names in vain when I do this. But that's, as far as I'm aware, that's a reasonable target to have this up and running. And the LGA have been very reasonable about it because we've said that because the funding has to come in this financial year, but we said we're not going to be able to use that to, we won't be able to see the difference and actually start, buying the portal and getting it up and running until later in the year, and they're fine with that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Dorndale.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank everyone initially for all the work that we've done through the Transition Committee so far. It's been an experience and a really good learning experience for myself. I think we have spoken very much about the call centre, but I would just want to, in the working groups, planning was one that did come up actually. And other areas, children's, so it was quite a broad conversation that we've all had, and we are mindful that there are issues across, there's lots of good practice, but there are issues across the whole organisation and not just the contact centre. And actually, it would appear that sometimes it's issues going on somewhere else that have the implications on the contact centre. So one of my questions is, whilst we are now starting this journey with regards to these improvements, and it comes back to what Councillor Ross has said about setting targets. At the last meeting we said we wanted to know the how, the who and the when kind of thing. So when we want a point where we're going to be handing this over to whoever this may be moving forward, what are the plans with regards to measuring what we're doing and when we're doing it, so that the new committee can do that? We've adopted the 15 principles, which is great, but what will the work programme look like? Do we know that yet, or is that something that we need to, because you're hearing today that there's lots of work going on in different areas. It's just, I think it would be really interesting for people to understand that moving forward, not for today obviously, but the new chair and group.
Thank you, Councillor Dale. The work plan is evolving, is presenting itself, and because we know we can't do it all at once and we've got to prioritise our efforts, what we're trying to do is make sure we do the things that will have the biggest impact. But to do that, you're absolutely right, we've got to create that overarching structure to the programme to make sure that that's doing the right thing in the right way and that builds to the picture. think the timescale for doing that will certainly work well with the first meetings in the new system, because we know that our new exec director is about to join us, and obviously as sponsor for this work, he will want to, have quite it's a great way to get to know the organisation through our customers, isn't it? So give him the opportunity to develop that shape with us. I think how we present that to the committee, I've got a data background. I'm really passionate about data, and the data is absolutely crucial. So, we spent a lot of time talking about experience, but we know repairs and maintenance is a really good example that a lot of the measures that they are still using are legacies from being a contractor to the council. So they're not necessarily the right measures for us. One of the examples is a high percentage of customers reported getting the repair right first time. But what Paul's staff experience and that number can't both be true. So I think what we need to do is take a bit of time to work out what the real measures are, let's agree how we'll measure them, and then put that in the hands of the committee so that that is something that you and your colleagues can use to say, well, this is getting worse or this is getting better. What can we do? And make sure that we listen to both the soft voice and the data.
It's worth noting in the LGA report, which is in the appendix, that they've actually itemised some quick wins. Now, they vary a bit. The one we mentioned last time about, why don't we take messages and call everybody back is quite challenging. But a lot of stuff around sort of web chat, live chat, natural language, stuff like that, is stuff that we're already at the pilot stage with. So some of those, which I think really are part of the sort of building blocks, really part of the infrastructure, and I think they can be quite quick wins. I think, we're already about to start the pilots on a couple of those. So we should be motoring with those really by the back end of the summer.
Thank you. Is that okay, Councillor Dawn? Yeah? Councillor Gillian?
Hi. Yeah, I want to build on what Dawn was saying, actually, and I think also what Councillor Ross was saying, it's very much about who, when, how. And I'm not criticising the report because it says all the things we need to do, but perhaps this is a suggestion for the wider council and for all kinds of reports when we start moving into the new committee system. It would be really nice to have some summary page on there that tells you who, what and when, so that we at least have something in. I mean, I know that you have problems determining clear timescales, but you could give indications, and I think that would be really helpful for everybody that's reading the reports, whether the public get access to it as well. I think people would like to see the clear points.
I think it's absolutely essential, and one of the things that the team that are supporting Gillian and colleagues around the transition to our new governance model is how do we use things like formats, documentation, processes. How do we make life as easy for ourselves as we possibly can moving forward? So I think it's a really helpful suggestion. I think one of the challenges around who is that this is everybody's business. It doesn't matter who you are, what your job is in the council, this is your business. Making sure that our customers get the best possible experience is everyone's job, but there has to be accountability and responsibility, and that's what that strategic part of the governance seeks to put in place to support Mark Bennett, Director of Customer Services, who I know has been with you a number of times, to kind of bolster that, to make sure that it is a one council wrap around who, but with some clear actions, and as that develops, that will be fed into the appropriate way of working with the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Dondale.
Thank you. On that then, I know that with the who is difficult, but I think something in here about that this is everyone's responsibility would be really helpful. But also we've spoken about, the issue in children's and who within those departments would be the person that we would speak to about whether or not we're progressing. I think would be really important, because it can't all be Mark for everything, but there will be different key directors in different areas where we will be working on improvement that surely will have some responsibility. So for us to be able to hand this over and have that named person for them to check in with, I don't know if that's relevant, but would be a good idea.
I think one of the things I welcome about that suggestion is that we need to make sure that, as we've been challenged by the city to be transparent around our decision making, is that we are transparent about our accountability as well. So if who is that senior officer, and making sure that as we develop the work plan that will underpin this, that accountable owners are clearly identified, and that information is, in an ideal world, publicly available as well. Because if you're a parent of a child with an EHCP plan, for example, and you're struggling, who do I go to? Who's the person who's going to be able to help me do that? That means I don't have to go to my local councillor, or, you know, write an angry letter to the Star, or whatever else I feel I want to do out of frustration. We've got to give people those opportunities to raise things in a, you know, in an appropriate way.
I think it's probably also mentioned we also need to go back to basics for some of the longer term stuff, because one of the things is getting more into that cross-skilling of people and getting away from that thing where you go to see somebody and they go, well, I can help you with this, but you're going to have to go over there to do that, and you're going to have to ring them to do that. How we can get that front door model in place. And I think it goes right the way back. Then we need to strip it right back to recruitment, the way that we're recruiting people, what we're asking people, what skills we're looking for there, and how we train people from there, and having that dialogue between services to be able to create some sort of cohort of people who are able to do that cross-skilled stuff.
Councillor MacDonald?
Just to comment on this little bit debate that's been going on, if this is a big programme or a project, it needs a programme or a project plan, and that's all people are asking for. And it's not about everybody in the organisation who's involved, it's actually who's leading on it and responsible for delivering. So I think that's really, really important. The more complex it is, and I understand it's complex, the greater the reason actually is for having some process in place for deciding whether or not you're making progress in the right direction. So I think that's what people were saying, and I think, you know, there's a consensus around us that we want to do that. But I'd just like to finish by sort of throwing in, I don't like using sporting metaphors. I don't even understand what this one means, but a googly. And I'm not convinced that the use of the term customer is appropriate. Because in fact, for me, customer actually involves some cash transaction, and most of the transactions that we deal with, people don't have much choice but to deal with us. And I know we've had discussion about this in the past, but certainly I favour something like Citizen and stuff like that, because I think people have, you know, people pay their council tax, they go and they vote, and I think, you know, they have rights associated with that. So I think that's more powerful. But it'd be interesting when you have the feedback panels actually to have some public feedback about that, and whether people would actually like to be considered customers by the council or citizens, or just even talked about in terms of the public. Because I do think there's a bit of an ideology around some of the language around customers, and I think people have even greater rights actually as members of the public and the citizens than they do rather than handing over a tenner to buy something. So just a little bit of a googly, which I think is something to do with cricket. Thank you.
It's worth lobbying in that whole thing about not just blankly referring to people as tenants as well, which tends to happen with, their housing customers or their housing citizens. But that whole thing of, tenants want this and tenants want that, I think we could move away from that usefully as well.
In my previous role, I spent quite a bit of time working with people who are in the SEND community, the LD community, and adult social care. Service user, people hate it. People just like to be treated like people. And I think it is a googly, so that's a good way for it. And it isn't a semantic, and I think it is sometimes treated as a bit of a semantic, and it isn't, because actually how people identify in their relationship with us, which is sometimes a very complicated thing. If you're a parent who is struggling and needing social care support, you don't feel like a customer. So I think it's a helpful challenge. On your first point about the project plan, the high level who will be in the sort of governance amendment that I'll make to the report, so that that is clear, and in the committee moving forward, that point of contact will be really clear. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? I don't think there is. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank you both for the report. A lot of hard work's gone in the report, but also we've had meetings in between the main meetings, which have been very interesting and quite a bit of eye-opener for myself and Dawn and Christine, so thank you very much. I'd just like to ask members now, does this committee agree with the recommendations? Yep, so I think that's absolutely fine, so thank you again, thank you.
Can we thank members as well for your input to this as well? It's been really enthusiastic and has really powered us along, that you're so driven and focused with it and you know, so on board. So thank you also for your input.
Thank you. Right, okay, so item number 8, our Council Transitional Committee Activity Report, and I'm going to pass it on to Alice for this.
Thanks, Chair. Not a lot to say, really. It's a summary of, as in, not a lot to say about the report, but in there is a list of the things that you, as a Transitional Committee, have got stuck into, and what you've done over this brief year that you've been in existence. And I think the customer experience and customer service is quite a success. So it's there just for you to know, and there for sort of future for others to see what the committee did.
Any questions or comments? Okay, so that brings us to the end of the meeting. Thank you, everybody. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the co-chair, Councillor Dorndale, and our deputy chair, Councillor Christine Gillian. And thank you to the members. And it is our last meeting today. In May, we don't know how it's going to come back and who's going to be chairing it, but you know, hopefully our recommendations will continue to the next committee. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.